Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Our title sponsor here for the podcast is Go High Level, also known as GHL. GHL is the first ever all-in-one platform that will give you the tools, resources, and support you need to succeed and crush your marketing goals. Personally, I've used this software since 2020. It's been a game changer for my business and for our clients. If you're looking to level up your CRM and marketing game, then this is the platform to use. You can find a link for a free and extended 30-day trial with tons of Builders of Authority bonuses in the show notes. So take advantage of the opportunity to adopt this amazing software and grow your business. Today, I'm joined in studio by someone I've known for years, but never really got the chance to get to know until a few years ago. Grew up playing soccer against each other in grade school and in high school even more. A few years ago, we went to a conference in Dallas together, stayed at an Airbnb with a few STL guys, and really got the chance to network and connect and chat about life and business. Since then, we've been watching each other grow, and I think both realized how we run in a lot of the same circles and how small the world actually is when you get older. This is a conversation I'm really excited about, and it's going to be a great episode. My guest today is Brysan DuVall. He is the owner at Keys to Freedom Real Estate here in St. Louis. Brysan, welcome, man.
Thank you. It was a great introduction, man. Happy to be here today.
Yeah, no, it's exciting, man. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while. So why don't you give the audience a little bit of a backstory on who Brysan is?
Great question. Where do we start?
Wherever you want.
St. Louis guy through and through. Wear that as a badge of honor for sure. Definitely something that's like growing, I think, as you get into business in like the neighborhood and communities that you've grown up within. I think the passion has grown for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as an adult, I think I had like that destination kind of syndrome when you're younger, like, dude, I'm leaving this town and I'm going to like go make it big somewhere or something. And it's like, you know, I think I did go away to college, to U of A. Not the best life decision, but really, really great story, you know, part of my journey. But as you know, we grew up playing soccer together. Soccer was definitely my first love out of like anything, other than like my family, you know, girlfriend and like friends and work. Like soccer is like the only thing else that I still love, I think is what it feels like.
Yeah.
But you know, I started my entrepreneurial journey in high school, you know, selling weed. That was my first entrepreneurial journey. And I got that bug early on. You know, I knew it was the wrong thing to do, but it was something about that excitement of being in control, maybe, you know, and making money, like kind of what it felt like on my own terms.
Yeah.
And, you know, once I did that, I realized that I was pretty unemployable is what it felt like. Yeah. You know, I started selling weed when I had a job at the time working at Snar's Hardware in Ladue. My dad was like, you're like 15 and a half, dude, you need a job. If you're not playing soccer, you got to work at the times that you're not really.
Yeah.
So I started doing that. Then I started selling weed, and I'm like, oh, my God, I cannot believe I have to wait another 2 weeks to get like, I think I was making like $7.75 at the time, you know, and I'm like, dude, I could just like make my paycheck every day, you know? So I think that kind of got me started where I realized that I would probably be very unconventional in life. You know, I knew that I couldn't, you know, die a drug dealer, but I knew that something was just going to be different for me. But I also was going through that time in high school where I wanted to be a professional soccer player, you know. I always had the aspirations to go on to college. You know, ended up getting kicked out of high school my senior year, and that you know, derailed my plan. It didn't have to. Like I still had scholarship offer on the table, D1, Loyola Chicago. They knew the whole story, and they're like, awesome, cool, we want you to play. Like, you're a kid. Like, you made a mistake. It's not a big deal. But to me, it was like everything, you know, and I just didn't have the support system around me. Like, let me back up. I have a great family. It's not that I didn't have the support system. I just did not know how to deal with like the grief and loss and like, you know, I come from a wonderful family, but we just don't really like communicate like that. To be like, if something happens, they're like, cool, like get back on your feet, you know? And I'm like, dude, like, you know, I was arrested at school today with my soccer jersey. You know what I mean? Like I have a captain's armband in jail, you know? And it's like, you know, the next day I was at another school, literally 24 hours, like nothing happened. I'm like, all right, cool. Now I'm back to my public school. Like, let's go on with life. And I'm like, dude, what just happened, dude? Like my whole life has been flipped upside down. So, you know, obviously, you know, some of my story, how, you know, I that was a pivotal point where that fueled my drug use, my alcohol use, my addiction that, you know, lasted years after that. And, you know, started my recovery journey back in 2016 after, you know, failing out of University of Arizona like 3 times, failing out of UMSL twice. You know, cool story about the UMSL thing. I came back from U of A after like, you know, getting my door kicked in, getting into like all this scary shit with like drug dealers in Tucson, Arizona. Like, and I'm just like, dude, like I liked getting money in the streets in that way, but like, dude, I'm not a tough guy. I'm not like trying to like have a gun on me or like, you know, or like fight anybody or do anything like that, bro. Like I'm not that guy. Let's be clear. And so it got to a point where it was just like not safe for me to be in Tucson, Arizona. So I was like, I called my mom like, yo, here's the deal. So I come back to St. Louis. I'm still kind of like messing around, like using, still partying. I walk onto the UMSL soccer team I hadn't touched the ball since I got kicked out of SLU, you know, or a little bit after that, maybe that spring. So maybe like, you know, 2.5 years go by. I haven't touched a soccer ball. I see a buddy of mine that played Gallagher and he's like, dude, you're at UMSL, come out for the team. And I'm like, okay, you know, so I walk onto the team and I'm like, awesome. So I make the team, you know, pretty easily. And then I get my transcripts in and I realize that basically I had taken so many credit hours where I should have been like a junior in college, but like my grades across those credit hours were like a 0.8. Literally. So they're like, dude, like you got to sit out for a year and just get your shit together. So that was another thing where it was a derailing point for me because I felt like, I'm like, oh my God, I got soccer back in my life. Like, dude, life is good again, you know? And then I get that bomb dropped on me. I mean, it makes total sense, but it wasn't in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't been to class really. Cool. Yeah, of course I'm academically ineligible to play, right? So I'm like, but to me, it was like another heartbreak, it felt like. So, you know, that I allowed that to continually like fuel my bad habits and using. So I went back to that, ended up failing out of UMSL twice. And then, you know, finally got a chance to go to rehab, start doing that process to try to get clean and sober. Ended up catching a drug case, a possession case. Towards the end of my active addiction. And that was just a horrible situation where, you know, I'm at rehab and my parents' door gets kicked in by the task force in Ladue. So another thing where it's like, okay, bro, like the writing's on the wall. And it was bad before. I was already on probation for leaving the scene of an accident, you know, where allegedly I was, you know, under the influence. You know, that's not documented, but you know, I left the scene of an accident. No one was hurt, but me kind of. So I had probation there, and then on probation, I caught the drug case. So, you know, now I'm facing prison time, violated felony probation. So I got a saving grace to have a probation officer that saw a ton of potential in me. And also saw my record of like rehab and like, you know, dirty drug tests where he was like, dude, like he thought I was like a kid that was just lost and like suicidal, really, you know, because like, you know, some of my drug screens when I was on probation, this is like, I'm on felony probation. I'd come in and he would drug test me. I mean, it's not funny. Like, it was so serious at the time. You know, I'm living with my parents. I don't have a license because it's revoked. Yeah. So we go there. I go to my probation officer. I take a drug test, and I think one of the first or second drug tests I tested positive for heroin, Xanax, marijuana, and PCP, all in one sample. And he just looked at me and was like, dude, are you, like, he dead serious. He looked at me in my eyes, was like, are you trying to kill yourself? And I was just like, what? No. Like, you know, and I kept on going there, and I would drop dirty. And he's like, dude, like, you don't understand. Like, you're going to prison if you keep up this behavior. And he's like, I already know. Like, you're not cut out for it, bud. I've been to your house. I've met your family. Like, you are not cut out for this. And he knew I was smart the way he would, like, ask questions. He's like, dude, you're not. He goes, I see some rough cases come through here. And he's like, you're a kid that's just messing up your life, you know? So when I caught the new case, the possession case, he was at court. You know, he recommended that I get treatment in prison. And it just so happened that, you know, they had an opening for a program called Choices, which is in St. Louis County Jail, where usually you can get a reduced sentence if you do a drug rehabilitation program while you're incarcerated. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I was in jail for about 8 years, but my sentence combined, I mean, should have been 7 years easily, you know, with both offenses together. Mm-hmm. So, you know, got out that, you know, started working for my dad, got back into school, you know, started flipping phones. That was my, like, first legal hustle, and that was amazing. Made like $40,000 in net profit in like a year. Wow. Flipping phones, like Facebook, Marketplace. I was hustling, bro. Yeah. So that like got my spirit back up. Like, maybe there's like other ways where I could get legal money and, like, you know, like, I'm like, you know, because I once I, like, really, like, got clean and in college, I'm just like, dude, like, I started to get to, like, the junior, senior level of college, and I'm like, bro, I'm seeing these kids. I'm, like, older than everybody in college now, by the way. You know, they're like, I mean, they're not, I was like 4 years older than them, but to me, they're like kids, just the way they're acting. They're like, oh, we're going out. Like, and it's, so it's not like huge party school, but still. So I'm like, feel like the old guy at college, like, in their conversations doing group projects. And they're like, yeah, I'm like, have an interview with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sweet. You know, because I'm like, dude, I don't want to interview for any job. Like, I felt like I'm like, I was grateful to be clean and sober. I was grateful to be in my family's life. I was grateful to be doing something constructive, but I still felt lost again because I'm like, dude, like, I'm not about to work for a corporation when I get out here, but I know I'm not going back to selling drugs. Like, I've at least convinced myself to not do that, right? Yeah. You know, so while I'm in school, you know, I get introduced to somebody who is saying they're online. They're saying they're flipping houses using none of their money. You know, we see that on YouTube every night. That's like a clickbait thing now. You start flipping houses today, blah, blah, blah. But I knew the guy. That was a different. It wasn't like an ad. Yeah. It was like, wait, no, I've like hung out with him. Yeah. You know, we run in the same circles. I know he's an upstanding, respectable guy. And I'm like, okay. And we're pretty cordial in like a social setting. So I'm like, I'm just going to reach out and see what the hell he's doing. Right. And he's like, yeah, man, if you're interested, like, you can, you know, kind of help me out. Like, here's a free course that I made. Go through that. If you're serious, you can come down to my office. And I don't have a license. I'm living with my mom's like, I'm either taking the bus or my mom's like taking me everywhere at this time. But I'm like grown. So I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm like, Mom, can you drop me off at this guy's office? Like, he's going to show me about real estate. And my mom's like super supportive of anything. She's like, you're trying to do something? Yeah, get in the car. You know, it's amazing. Like, it doesn't matter. You're not screwing your life up. Let's go. You know, even when I was, she was still the same way. God bless her soul for sure. So I got introduced to wholesaling that way. And, you know, I immediately, me and him had some of the same past struggles, you know, legal troubles, that type of lifestyle. So that's what we already had a little bit of an understanding where I'm like, dude, if he can do it, like, whatever, I have a felony record now, like, shit, I can figure it out, I think. You know, all he's doing is calling people, he's making deals, he's a hustler, you know? So I'm like, I can hustle. One thing I can do is hustle, for sure. So he got into that game of flipping properties, buying rental properties, and I was just kind of like a deal finder for him, you know? So I was like, dude, I'll do whatever. not getting paid. I'll bring you opportunity. If we close opportunity, all I want to do is get some type of compensation. I wasn't like hardcore negotiating. I'm like anything, you know? So we do our first deal together. I got it off of Craigslist and I tell him about it. He goes and gets a property under contracts, finds a cash buyer to sell it to in like 2 to 3 weeks time. And, you know, he calls me and he's like, yeah, dude, I got a check for you. You know, I could drop it off to your mom's house, whatever, or, you know, you can meet me. So it's like a, you know, I think maybe a $500 check. But I was like, okay, but I didn't see the property and I literally just like gave him a phone number to call.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, maybe there's something to this. I don't know how all that just went down. But I'm like, I mean, I didn't do much.
Yeah.
You know, I sent him a text message like, this dude wants to sell his house. He's like, cool, I'll go to the property.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So we start doing deals like that now, and each deal after that, I'm starting to get more eyes into the process.
Yeah.
You know, now I'm going on appointments with him. Now I'm, you know, seeing him underwrite a deal, make the offer, get something under contract, and like asking like, okay, so who are the people that buy that? So I'm starting to understand the ecosystem of all this, you know, slowly but surely. And I'm like, okay, dude, this shit's not that complicated, you know? So the thing that held me back from going full into it while I was in college, I didn't have that self-belief yet. You know, I believe that was a thing and a viable option for people to do as a career. I just didn't know if it was viable for me.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a time where I'm like, dude, like, do I gamble on something else or like, do I just take a job? I don't know. I was so conflicted. So, you know, I ended up taking a corporate project management job for only a year. And I'm glad I did because that fueled my entrepreneurial hunger that much more. I had to experience it. You know, sometimes it just takes what it takes whatever process we're in. And, you know, I went there and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm for sure sold on entrepreneurship. I'm like, if I lose it all, it doesn't matter. I can always get a job like this is what I thought. Yeah. You know, so I made it a goal to, you know, in that second 6 months in 2022, my goal that year was I was going to leave my job in May, and I had a goal to hit 6 figures that year. So I'm doing this part-time for half of that year, working 48 hours a week, cold calling every day in the office after everybody leaves. You know, I get a couple hours in a cold call, set some appointments for the weekend, text messaging, doing whatever, posting on Facebook, doing the marketplace stuff any way I knew how to attract some type of lead. And you know, I eventually left that job in May, then closed nearly a $40,000 deal, like maybe 3 weeks after I left my job. So I ended up making 6 figures that year by like November, you know, and that job was paying me $37,000. Yeah. You know, so it was an amazing progression of confidence to be like, cool, like, you know, I've earned the right to be confident in myself now. Yeah. And I've showed it to myself, and now I'm just like, oh shit, now it's just the beginning. Let's go. We've like officially found something, you know, and it was the first time in such a long time since, like, you know, not having soccer in my life, not having that genuine excitement of like a purpose. It felt like, you know, now I'm like, no, like, I think I'm like, you know, this was like destiny. You know, I'm in the right space, and I don't know what that'll lead to. And now, like, we know, like, our entrepreneurial journeys have led us to this point today, you know, which is amazing, you know, and it's by no means limited to real estate, of course. You know, now it's like, we've both been able to see the impact that you can make just through being like who you are, being completely authentic, being, you know, how that can win business and how that can attract people to follow you and how it can also make us a ton of money. Yeah. You know, and it's, yeah, man, I think now it's to the point where, you know, I also have made a lot of money in real estate, but I've also spent a lot of times like in an empty pursuit. If that makes sense. And when I say that, like, you know, there's been times where I've been in the journey where it's amazing, like, you know, how you're a great builder of authority. I believe that I'm pretty good at it too. And I've also been not a victim, but I've also fallen for the tendency to follow the wrong things for the wrong reasons, or follow the right things for the wrong reasons. Because, if you're not solid in what you're trying to get out of what you're doing, it's so easy to be sold. And I've never been sold by anybody that I felt was like unethical or anything like that. I just allowed myself to attach to somebody else's like dream and process, and really I wanted like the monetary results, but I didn't understand like the lifestyle piece. And now it's like I've had to gone through my own, a lot of valleys to realize like, no, like we can all be the architect of whatever this looks like, and it took me like in the last 2 years to really, I've heard it before, but like to really go through it and be like, oh shit, like I'm just creating some shit to create, like I'm not, there's no joy and fulfillment in it. And I'm like, dude, if we can't, I've gone to that process where I created a business that I completely resented, and I'm like, dude, if I can't get up to it with and meet and go into my business and go into the activities that are required of me, and those really not even requirements, responsibility, but I was looking at them as requirements and very rigid, like, oh, I have to do this way because these people do it this way, and that's how you get to this result and this. And I'm like, really, I just gotta like figure out what works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I think I'm like, I had a similar experience, which is kind of where I got to where I'm at today, which is whereas like you're building this thing just to build it.
Yeah.
And originally, like we all set out like, man, I would love to just be able to make more than I was making before, or I would love to have like this freedom. And then like you get there and you're like, oh shit, the grass isn't as green as I thought it was going to be. And so I think that's the hardest part. Like, some people don't get started at all with entrepreneurship because they're like, I got to have it all figured out. You don't have to have it all figured out right away. But if you don't figure out why you're doing what you're doing, and if it's all about the money or if it's all about the X, Y, and Z, you're gonna struggle at some point.
For sure.
It's the hardest thing.
Yeah. It's just so many, there's so much like, there's just infinite amount of like routes to make things like make things happen. It's like you can, I have buddies of mine that it's like they're so focused and good at like their niche that they can be like, cool, like I'm working 20 hours a week and I'll still hit $1 million, and they don't have a big team. It's not a thing because they have this crazy team around them. It's because they have a couple people in their operation and they're just laser focused and they just like, they're not going to deviate. They're like, cool. No, like they made and it's crazy. I remember one time where a buddy of mine, he's I call him a buddy now, but he's definitely has a lot of authority in the real estate space, founder and, tech entrepreneur, built an amazing CRM that we use every day in our business. And, I remember we did like this little like, course that he put together. I think it was like free at the time. And like the first thing was like, how many hours do you want to work? And I was just like, why does that matter? You know what I mean? Like, I guess I was like conditioned to be like, dude, you got to just do whatever it fucking takes. Like, don't be worried. Like, if you want this money, you just got to go to war for it, And it took me years of bumping my head up against that frustration to realize like, no, those are the most important questions that you have to ask. What kind of lifestyle do you want first? Not like the income goal and then that. It's like, dude, I mean, there's a lot that you can do if you were working 20 hours and you could, make $1 million and if you netted $700,000 of it.
Yeah.
Like, especially because if you're only having 3 people, it's like, how much is your overhead?
Yeah.
It's like, and then you can have the other 20 hours to just like really sit into it and actually enjoy that.
Yeah.
And it's great lesson and still learning the lesson of just being the full architect of your life, know?
Well, so was there like a specific point that like you got to in the business? Was it like a specific dollar amount, just too many deals, you having too many responsibilities, or like what was that pivotal moment where you're like, man, I'm resenting going into this business?
Dude, it wasn't a specific dollar amount of revenue. It was a specific dollar amount going out of our business. Like our burn rate was just ridiculous, And there's that like enemy of scale sometimes where like we should be scaling our net profit.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we view scaling as like, oh, now we have all these marketing channels.
Yeah.
Now we have all these people. Now we have all these cold callers. Now we have all these different things. And it's like, we get to define what scale looks like for us.
Yeah.
But my ignorance was like, cool, no, the people that like I'm learning from, I'm paying $20,000 for a coaching program or, spent way over that, probably $100K now on coaching, but and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for the things because the coaching programs weren't the problem.
Yeah.
It was me.
Yeah.
My lack of clarity and lack of understanding to be like, okay, I'm not signing up just for like, or trying to take the bits and pieces from the coaching program. I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I have to be the CEO like he's the CEO. Instead of being like, wait, I can maybe just take the sales process and do it in my business, but, and I think that's what the big thing, I know you're an inner wealth, so clarity is a huge thing that they talk about in there. And that's what I lacked for so long. I didn't know why I was doing certain things. I'm like, if I invest this money, I'm just gonna get it back. I'm brave and I'll put my money where my mouth is. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? So that it got to the point where it was, just keeping that faucet on financially and understanding like, okay, I have the money right now for this, but do I have the money for the next 2 years to invest the way I am in my business?
Yeah.
And that's what I realized. It's like I have known and it started to come up. I'm like, no, bro, this is like gambling.
Yeah.
This is like what you're doing is gambling right now.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it because it was in the name of growth in business, in legal business.
Yeah.
But I had to really sit with myself and be like, bro, like, what kind of business owner are you now? What kind of business owner do you want to be? And, I always think like, I never want to be in a position in my business to be like, cool, like, am I going to be able to pay employees that I've invested in? Am I going to, having all that type of, because that's what it got to, where I'm like, then I just started to have to be almost just like reactionary to cost and things that were coming up. I'm like, oh, fuck, we just got to cut this because we're just like, we can't do it, and you just never want to feel that way. You never want to feel like, wow, I created this and now I have to get out of it. So I realized for me, it was just scaling back everything, really spending a lot of time. Like I'm at the office a lot still, but like, I feel like I don't work that much as I did. Yeah. I would just like work to work too. I think I was in that addiction part of I really like it wasn't, I'd find something wrong to fix. I'd find something, oh, we did this. And oh yeah, I was reminded by this person on social media to like fix this process in my business. And I'm like, dude, like let's fix the important things that we need to fix now or run with them. Now I'm like very patient more patient with myself to just like run with things that are even partially viable.
Sure.
I used to think everything had to be perfect and everything like we can't launch this strategy until like I have XYZ everything. I'm like, dude, is there something to follow now? Then we have enough documentation. Let's do it. I know you're big on documentation and SOPs and being able to delegate that stuff. And I just, I've realized that sometimes when I'm stuck in things is just like really because I don't want to show up and be accountable to them. So I just like kind of work on them, but not finish them. And I'm like, you can convince your brain that you're being productive.
Sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. It's like just putting a Band-Aid on and then you're like, oh yeah, it's cool. I'm making progress in my business or whatever, and I'm just starting to catch myself more in that and be like, let's be deliberate and intentional about whatever we're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give an entrepreneur from the experience you've learned about creating a business around your lifestyle?
I think I'm still in it. I'm not good at it still. That's a good.
But I mean, if you talk about your story that I think you've seen, I've even just learned stuff I need to do from listening to you, or just like that. And I think a lot of people build the business, and I know this is how I built it. They built the business out of necessity or freedom, or the lack of, or the want of freedom. Yeah. And then you get there and you're like, oh crap, now I got to worry about my life. Now it seems like you've kind of repositioned of like, hey, here's the lifestyle I want.
Yeah,
Here's how we're building the business.
for sure. And I think the biggest thing is just really the struggle, and I think to learn is like most of us just don't know the lifestyle.
Mm.
You know, most of us just don't. I still like half know it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a lot of us just are not conditioned to feel that way and like really like give ourselves that much attention.
Yeah.
You know, like I can give myself like so much attention to everything but me.
Yeah.
Like the real me.
Yeah.
Not like, I mean, it's my stuff because I'm doing it, but like true to like my spirit and my being and my soul, you know, to really understand like, you know, my advice is always like, you know, figure out what kind of burn rates you have at home and be like, cool, like what's the minimal viable thing in my business that I can just like get my burn rate taken care of?
Yeah.
You know, like that's a simple place to start. Because then it's like, sometimes it's amazing to have an expansive vision, and I'm always trying to expand my vision as anybody should.
Yeah.
I stand on that for sure. And, you know, I know that our vision is always subject to revision. You know, as more we experience things, we have conversation, we say, oh my God, I didn't even see that part. Maybe I should explore that.
Yeah.
Or I'm inspired by somebody else. So can I stretch my vision? Maybe I've realized something that's more powerful in me and more potential that I have. No, I can do X, I can do Y. But I think it's important to have balance in there, to not let like that grandiosity like be a thing that handicaps us, because it does to me a lot.
Yeah.
You know, where it's a simple thing, like a simple viable business is like, cool, what takes me out of a job? You know, cool. You don't have to hire anybody to do that.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, everything is like, dude, if you're on the if you follow the people that we follow or have the explore pages that we have just naturally because we're entrepreneurs and we follow real estate guys and public speakers and everything, they're gonna be like, dude, if you're not fucking scaling, like, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're not doing this, and it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for me to decipher that. And it's like, you know, my biggest advice is staying true to yourself to understanding the true purpose.
Yeah.
Is it like, you know, family freedom, time freedom, you know, financial freedom, and just focusing on that on a very small scale at first. You know, people, you know, we build so many different like barriers to living that life. I know I do all the time.
Same.
You know, like once I do this, I can do that. And, you know, like my coaches are always telling me like, dude, like, you know, I know you know Grant, you know, so like Grant's always like, you know, if you want to be, he's like, you're always looking for a reason to be joyful and fulfilled.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, just go be
do it.
joyful,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk to you anymore, right? We can end this conversation. But I can't say that I've fully adopted that.
Yeah.
But it is a great reminder of like, dude, you can just like start doing the stuff that you want to do and really focus. You know, going back to the original question, the advice is building something that's sustainable for you, not sustainable to the industry, not like, dude, there's no freaking competition in any industry.
Yeah.
Like there's the way like, you know, the way you stand on what you have built your brand around, that messaging is that we all can have authority.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like, you know, whatever that thing. I know me, you know, I still don't have a strategy of building authority, like where it's like, this is the plan, you know, but I just know because of the feedback of me being genuine with people, me sharing ups and downs, that it's attracted so much trust in my life
100%.
and belief that people are like, yeah, I just like him.
Yeah.
Cool. He wants to do business. I'll think about him, even though I'm not like, you know, the biggest like real estate guru by any chance, any stretch of the imagination. But that's the biggest advice is just staying true to really what solves, I would say, if you do have problems, solving your personal problems and, you know, creating an experience and focusing really like solely on, of course, if it's money, it's like, yeah, just get that solved. Yeah. If you got to just like pay your bills to your business, for sure. Yeah. But once you get to the point of kind of like survival step 2 in a business, then it's like focus on the experience that you want to have with it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the biggest thing that I've learned in the last 2 years in a coaching program is focusing on the transformation that you want to have in the business, focusing on the feelings that you want to have in the business, you know, and that's what, you know, the generation before us, it's like that, none of that stuff mattered to them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's great. There's been so many people that have done great things without doing it that way. I just feel like that's the most fulfilled version of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Definitely, man. Well, this is an incredible episode, man.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we got to do
For
this.
sure.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot about you, but I learned a lot about myself and just things. And that's why I love doing it, especially these in-person episodes, is you can feel the energy. You can feel like the real raw and authenticity. So you brought it today, man. Where can people stay connected with you online?
On Facebook, Instagram, for the most part, just my name, Brysan DuVall.
Love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again.
Definitely. Part 2.
Yes. And thanks again to our amazing title sponsor, Go High Level. Without them, we aren't able to produce the quality of content or have amazing guests like we did today with Brysan. Check out a free and extended 30-day trial in the show notes. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review as well. We're making a big push for those, and it definitely helps move the needle. And remember, authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.